Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tennesha Wood. So today I want to talk about something that we don't usually talk about. We don't talk about money a lot, and money in relationships, and who should be spending what, and how it should work, and how it should flow. And money is important because money is one of the things that breaks up a lot of marriages and a lot of relationships. So I think it's important that we touch on that. So I have a money expert here with me today. Her name is Kara Stevens. So she's going to talk about her relationship, how things flow with her and her husband, how they decide how money works. So hi, Kara.
Hi, Tennesha. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm excited to be here.
So I want to hear about your love story. How did you and your husband meet? How long you been married? All that.
Okay, so my husband and I met. We actually met online.
What site?
eHarmony.
Okay.
And actually, I wasn't on eHarmony, but they keep on sending you those check this person out, like updates when you're no longer a member.
So it's like come back.
And I was like, because y'all didn't do me right for the past year I was on. But I kept myself open. My brother had recommended that I do it. And I was a teacher. I was very busy. And I realized that, hey, in order for me to find love, and in the most economical way, because I am a personal finance person, I was like, I think online was a great way because you can put your profile in front of many people while you're still able to do your day-to-day living.
Yep.
And so when I saw his profile, they don't show the pic when they're trying to get you back. So that's how they entice
you. You got to log in, get an account.
Exactly. You got to pay for the 3 months or the 6 months or whatever it was at that time. But the big thing that attracted me to my husband was his profile when he said one of the things that what do you want people to know about you that you may not necessarily they see about you? And what I loved about it was that he says he had a big heart. And I was like, oh, so now I pay my money. Right. Got back on. And then from there, we had a lot in common just in terms of our interests. So we got through like the whole process and then we started dating, and then after about 6 months, we were like, okay, so what is this? And he's like, I want something serious. Now, and even talking about, marriage at 6 months, I was like, whoa, that was a lot, but it was what I wanted too. And I had at that time also been working.
When a man knows, he knows.
Yeah. And I felt,
and when he doesn't know, move on.
Exactly. And also don't lie and like, that's not the time to start playing hard to get either. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I had to check myself because I think that was maybe what I was used to saying, hey, I want something. But then when it comes, then you're like, no, I don't want it. Then you start sabotaging. Right.
Right.
So I have been working for many years, just trying to clean and clear my thoughts, clear the clutter, and just be open to love, because I've been open to money, open to physical fitness, but that area of love, just because of all the things that had happened in the past, like the relationship I'd seen in my family, it was just something I was very reluctant to do, but it was something that I also know that I wanted.
So you had a lot of baggage based on things that had happened to you and in your family, and so you were just like, I maybe don't even need that. I don't even want that.
But deep down you really do.
Everybody does.
Yeah. And so I was like, why don't you challenge yourself? You say that you like challenges. Why don't you challenge yourself to love? So we started getting a little bit more serious about it. And I think a year later, he proposed, and then we were engaged for about maybe 2 years, I think. And that was mostly because we're not traditional in terms of marriages and stuff like that. So we took a long time to get the license. And once we got the license and we realized that the license was going to run out in about 3 weeks, we had a quick wedding in my mom's house because we didn't want to get back on that line. I was like, I'm not really trying to repay for this fee. And I'm really not trying to get back on that. It was a really long line to get the license, Nisha. So I was just like, I'm not doing this.
Wait, once you get a license, it expires in 2 years?
No, so we were engaged and we got the license. And I think the license runs out after a year.
Oh,
so that's why we
okay.
got married in November, because I think maybe the year before, like we were engaged, but then we went about thinking about the wedding like maybe a year later after we were engaged, and then we kind of like, we were kind of lazy about getting the wedding, and then we looked at the license. We were like, oh, if you don't get married, you gotta get back.
I'm not waiting in that line again.
Yeah, like seriously. So then we got married. It was like a small ceremony. It was like the best thing for me. Like it was in my mom's house. We had a brunch before. We had the wedding ceremony. My cousin or god sister was a priest, so she officiated the wedding, and we had some food. We had some friends, and it was like, you're married, and it was fun. It was great. And so that's where, that's our love story. I think he's a great friend, a great companion. He challenges me in ways that I think are important for my growth, and I feel like I do the same for him. And it hasn't been like perfect. Like no relationship is perfect, but I think we put in effort. And 6 years later, November was like our 6th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a ride, and I'm looking forward to like the next 6 and the 6 after that. Yeah.
Now, being that you are a finance person, or you're on top of your money.
Yeah.
Do you think about things like when we go on a first date, who should pay? Do you talk about things like that? So, for example, your first date with him, who paid, and what did you think about the way it went down?
Okay, so I actually when we met, I had already started the Frugal Feminista, and so some of these questions around relationships had come up, and you're like, well, it depends. Well, I personally, even though like you have the feminista part in the Frugal Feminista, I still appreciate the overture of the traditional structure of a man paying, since he asked me out. But there were times in our relationship where I paid, because I felt like, for me, the beginning parts of the relationship, especially from my personal money story and that was influenced by my mom's money story, it was very hard for me to trust men with money, right? Mm-hmm. So I can own that I brought that to the beginning of any relationship. Mm-hmm. So in seeing him be able to pay, but not pay, but also choose restaurants or places that weren't over the top to prove something, but not super shabby, where I'm like, what's going on? So some place where it was more of a place to connect as opposed to show off, or as opposed to be withholding. So I kind of looked at the location and the choices around the evening as in terms of paying for it, but also like the choice of it as like a way to help me dissolve some of those issues. Right.
You learned from your mother's money story, and then yours as well. What were your issues, I guess, around money, or what was the story with that you were bringing that to the table? Yeah,
I think like, and I've said this like a lot on the site. It's been my mom. She was Caribbean, Antiguan background, and she was raised to do everything for a man and had like more of the traditional roles where she takes care of everything, but she's also putting him through medical school while she worked with like 17 jobs, and 2 kids in New York City in 1970s, and all that to support someone who ultimately abandoned his family.
Wow.
So when he left, so she had invested in him, I guess, financially, emotionally, so we could be like the Caribbean Huxtables. Right. She was a nurse. He would be the doctor. I mean, she's not the lawyer, but the same thing. Right. Middle class, professional, up and coming. And to have that taken away, to have love taken away, to have all the money taken away, number one, was devastating. And then number two, it made her want to protect me as her only daughter. So she started to instill in me these beliefs about men and money on the one hand, and also about...
Which were what?
Don't trust them. Don't trust men. Don't trust men with money. And also because she became the breadwinner in one fell swoop, she felt something was taken away from her. So when we deal with loss as like human beings, even if it's not as much as we think we're losing, the perception of loss can be very detrimental. So everything was too expensive. Mm-hmm. So deprivation, and I think she just went into a depression, to be quite honest. And no one likes to talk about mental health and depression and relationships, especially, I'm not going to say especially in the Caribbean community, but large in the Caribbean community. Right. And we have this whole belief about sucking salt and, it's being practical. And the fact that she sent me to school, clothed me, bathed me, and things like that were her signs of like, I'm doing the best that I can. And in hindsight, of course, I understand that. But she was protecting whatever she had left based on that relationship in terms of her money and just her emotions. And so as her daughter, and I was an obedient daughter, and I love my mom, and your kids sometimes take on your struggles and your champion your causes without you even realizing. I started to treat myself like that, like just basic things like, no, everything's too expensive, just kind of having this scarcity mindset in general when it came to those things. And also, I was also the kind of woman that had boyfriends that always, I took my father's position in relationships. Like I attracted men who wanted to do everything for me, but that'd be really mean to them, you know, and like kind of be depriving and withholding. And so all that to say, I realized that deep down, you know, you have that true self that can speak to you, but sometimes the voice is so drowned by like all those other voices that are trying to compete for your attention that, you know, you don't listen to it, even though it's there. But then I realized that the longer I didn't listen to it, the more unhappy I would be, because ultimately I think we're here to love. And so so that was the money story that I brought.
How did you realize that was an issue? Like, how did you, number one, realize that you were thinking in a way that was detrimental to you in relationships because of your ideas around money? And two, how did you begin to overcome it?
Well, I think ever since I was a little girl, I've been a reflective person. And because of the interesting people in my life in terms of their relationships, I was always a fly on the wall. So I would see things that wouldn't be right and notice behaviors. But because my family wasn't necessarily a communicative family, I had to try out different personalities to see if I can get a particular result, right? So I understood the duality of behaviors. Like people will say one thing but really mean another. And I use that on myself. So in a relationship, say I would want to say, hey, babies, I miss you. But instead, it would be like, where were you? You know, or so I would know that that's not exactly what I want to say, but it was a safer way because I was trying to protect myself. Do you know what I mean? So I understood, that was one thing I understood about myself. And also in my relationship in college, I just knew that, you know, I was a person that loved to read, loved to learn. And I also was very curious about human behavior based on the people in my family and also based on what I was doing. And I knew if I didn't address the issue, I would be building a prison for myself. Right. And so I went to therapy, you know what I mean? And I think also what I did...
In college?
I went to therapy after college, but it started in college because I was with a really nice guy, but there was still this desire almost to hurt him, not even realizing it. Like you had all this hurt, but I was like, I wasn't really hurt, but I saw my mom hurt. So these are the behaviors I carried. And so, you know, you just kind of keep these patterns going.
Yep. And we don't realize, I think, how much stuff we bring into relationships. Yeah. You know, like you meet a person, you like them, and you're treating them a certain way, and you're having a reaction to them, and you're not even sure why. And you, part of you knows this doesn't necessarily have to do with this person that's in front of me right now, but you can't figure out what it is, but you're like, something about you. And what it probably was about him was just, you're a male. And this has been sort of my relationship with male via my mother. And so I'm taking a part of this out on you.
Right. And I knew that it wasn't fair, you know, and I wanted to do better because I did not want to follow in the same footsteps as my mom, you know. In a lot of ways I did. She was beautiful, ambitious, and things like that. But I think she was very sad. And I can tell as I got older that it didn't have to be that way because I would go to my other friends' homes and see very loving relationships between husband and wife, but also between father and daughter. And I thought, are they playing? Are they playing like some type of role?
Am I on a movie set?
Right.
What are they doing? Action.
Exactly.
Scene.
And I realized like, yo, it's me. You know what I mean? Like I noticed that people came to other people's homes. We didn't have that at my house. I was like, why are they letting people in their house like that? And then I started to realize, oh, it's me. It's me. So it all started with me deciding to go back to Antigua to talk to my dad.
So he had left for Antigua.
Oh, when I was 5 years old, like really long. Like he was like, I'm out, right?
And never came back?
Yeah, he came back every once in a while, but like those, you know, those things made it worse. I think like he would come for like holidays or graduations. And it made it very awkward because I would also too get mad at my mom for inviting him back and then treating him, treating him as if nothing had happened.
Like he still gets the biggest piece of chicken.
Right. He gets to like cock his foot up, and we had like nice new furniture at one point. And I was like, why does he get to put his feet up on the furniture? You know what I mean? He didn't pay.
You don't even live here like that.
Exactly. And I'd be mad. And so I just had this resentment just in general to her, to him. And I was like, I can't be living.
Because it was never really explained, it seems like.
No. And who explains stuff to children in the
Exactly.
Like you're a child.
Even when you're a grown child.
Right. You're grown. Like mind your business. Like,
right.
You're not grown. And so I was like, I can't live like this. Because I knew, one thing I knew was that I wanted to be happy. And this was going to be it. Right. So I went to Antigua like for a couple of summers in a row, actually, just to kind of yell at my father. Like I would go, I'm serious.
I flew here to give you a piece of my mind.
Right.
I'm out.
Right. So he's a doctor. So he ended up finishing medical school and having a pharmacy in Antigua. And so I'd be like, I got a couple things. And I would sit there and I would never curse, but I would cuss him out in my own way and he would ignore me. And that was just so very frustrating. But I went back 2 more years, I believe, right after that, that I realized that he has his own problems.
Right.
And so for me to get answers from him would be stupid. So I said, let me go get some help. Mm-hmm. But that was the beginning of the process. And also after that, I went to tantric yoga classes just to kind of get in. It was like just to get in touch with my sensuality because I knew that there was a block, And after that, I just started to be more gentle with myself in terms of, number one, knowing that I don't know all these things about love because I didn't really see it. But then 2, feeling that I'm capable of it. I mean, I learned other stuff. You know what I mean? I learned how to like budget. You know, but no one told me I know budget, right? So I learned how to budget. So I was like, I can figure, I'm smart. I can build a skill set around love and then be aware of my triggers and things like that and just use myself as like a guinea pig, with respect to that. So, I mean, that's
what an interesting way to look at it. And I've never thought about it like that in terms of, you can learn to love.
Yeah.
If you can learn to budget, if you can learn to swim, if you can learn to ride a bike, you can learn to love. And just because you've had a bad experience with it, or you come from a place where you didn't necessarily see it modeled, it doesn't mean it can't be a learned behavior.
Yeah. And I think that came all, I bring this also a lot into helping women with their finances because the truth is, we can blame our parents because they are to blame, but you're still responsible ultimately. You want to stop spending and overspending? Yeah, mom didn't love you and didn't do X, Y, and Z. Got it. But you're 30, girl. Do you know what I mean? So what you going to do? We got one session, we could blame them. Next session, we're going to say, okay, I take responsibility moving forward. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Same thing for love. Like, no one taught me how to love. Great. But I can read a book. I can go to classes, I can reflect, I can check myself. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is it is possible, especially if the alternative is being unhappy and not getting what you want. And this was also just in terms of friendships too. Like I wasn't creating the friendships that I wanted because I was just closed off in general.
Right.
So it was just showing patterns in all areas of my life. So I decided to work on that. And
it seems like they were all the same patterns everywhere in terms of being closed off and having a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your relationship like with your dad now?
It's one of loving from a distance. I think in the past couple of years, I think he might have tried to reach out after I had my daughter once or twice to kind of say, hey, when you come visit with your child. And so I was just like, that's his old Caribbean way of saying that, I guess the best way, his apology for being like a jerk. But I was like, I can accept it, but I don't have to schlep my kid in the hot sun to come see somebody that maybe may not treat me or her right. So I can accept the love in his own way, but also say no thank you in terms of creating this full relationship that never existed. So I wish him well. Like I planned to go to Antigua. I went to Antigua a couple of years ago and I did see him, and I could tell maybe there's some what's the word? Regret. Mm-hmm. But I'm at a point where I want to hear it. So
like you need a straight up apology to your face.
To my mom especially. Like forget me, do you know what I mean? But to the woman that you left to raise these kids by herself and who's done a wonderful job. You got to take responsibility for that. And that's the least that you could do. And if he could do that, that would open my heart a little bit more. But in general, I would never wish him evil like the way I used to. Do you know what I mean? Like someone like runs him over in a car. You know what I mean? None of that. But I also pity him because maybe he needs to heal certain things that he couldn't heal. but also I'm not someone's punching bag where I have to endure mistreatment from anyone, especially my own father.
How does your mom feel about it now?
My mom,
does she want the same apology that you want for her?
She says she doesn't, but I think she does. I think any woman that has been like a good woman, and they say in the Caribbean, like she did everything that she was supposed to do in terms of supporting your man, stand by your man, investing in your man, raising his kids, you know. I think she deserves at least that.
Yeah.
If not all the property that he has, but if not that.
Half of this is mine.
Right. Most of it is.
Luckily, she's not a litigious woman because I can't guarantee I wouldn't be like, by the way.
Exactly.
Here's some papers for you.
No, but you know what's, Tennesha, is actually funny because my mom and I had this really interesting conversation about her wanting me to continue to pursue the relationship strictly for the property. And and I told her, Mom, I said, listen, it's not worth it. There's some things that money's not worth it. I was like, it'd be different if I was broke and I didn't have anything. I didn't have a degree. I couldn't speak well. I couldn't write well. I didn't have the ability to fend for myself or my child. I was like, I've lived without it this whole lifetime. I don't need it. You know, she's like, you're being stupid. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Do you know what I mean? Because I can create more of that for myself. So it's so her... I guess it's her trying to get back what she lost through me, but I'm not going to allow her story to be my story.
Like the mental turmoil isn't worth the money.
No. And I'm not sure she sees that because for her, she put so much into it, and I understand, but it's also...
She's like, I got to get something back.
You got to get something. I was like, well, you know, you have your daughter. You have a loving relationship with your daughter. You have a grandchild that loves you. You have, you know, a son that loves you. You have... you know, in-laws that care for you. You're wealthy. So I'm trying to help her see that you're just going to have to take an L on that one.
Right. So let's talk about what your mom maybe could have done different to stop this cycle and what we all can do in relationships to not go through something like that.
No.
So step one, would you say... you know, she shouldn't have put him through medical school, or she shouldn't have done those things for him, or how would you have gone about it? And now knowing what you know about finance and relationships and sort of having done therapy and did a lot of self-growth over the course of the last couple of years.
I don't think she should have put him through medical school. I think that is something that's his personal goal, and that there are loans for it, that there his own savings can do it. And I'm not sure if she volunteered. I don't know what the expectation was. I wasn't there, you know. But I do think in relationships where there's this expectation that another one will put their life on hold, or their career or their goals on hold for someone they haven't even married yet. They were married though, but especially if you're in a relationship and you're not married yet, to put your goals on hold for someone that could actually do it themselves is not something I would recommend. That's why we have loans. And if you're going to make as a doctor, even beginning salaries, you'll be able to repay those loans, right? And I think also when you invest in something that you put some skin in the game, you're going to want to finish. Because I know part of the story was that he failed and he, you know, was kind of having fun in medical school because it was on his dime. So I think when
you don't appreciate what you don't work for.
Exactly. So I would say, I'm with you, baby. I'll be in doing my PhD while you over there handling your medical school. And then when we're together, we can start a life together. But I don't think any woman is ever responsible for another person's, let alone their mate's educational expenses.
What do you think are some of the pitfalls that women go through in relationships around money? Like, what are some common mistakes?
I think it depends on the perspective that they come from. I know that in just talking to my male friends, a lot of women try and buy the affection of men that they like or are interested in through like buying them things or bringing them food. Or
I'm surprised at that.
So am I, because when I hear these stories, I was like, who do you know? Because I don't know.
It would seem the other way around if I were to just guess.
No. So I've had a friend who's shared with me that women would like buy him like coats and sneakers and, you know, bring him lunch.
Like not his girlfriend type woman, just people he was dating?
People that were interested in getting to know him, or kind of, I think what women do sometimes is use I'm just your friend, and they stay in the friendship zone and then do all these things like caretaking, relationship-like behaviors without the commitment. Yes. So I would say that's a pitfall. So number one, you're not being honest. Like if I want to be your girl, then I want, like, these are the behaviors that I'm going to admit, like, I like you, kind of see where this is going. And also this idea that I have to show you what I can offer you through purchasing
Instead of just myself.
Instead of myself, exactly. So I would say don't do that. But on the other spectrum, there are these different apps that let you know when there's like a baller, like a basketball player or like someone famous around, so you can kind of get your hoochie life together and kind of be a groupie.
Wait, there's really an app for that?
There was an app for that, yeah. I think it was called Baller Alert. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Is that what that used to be?
Yeah, what it used to be. Yeah.
Oh, that's why it's called that.
Yeah. So
never knew that.
Right. So I think this other idea of women feeling that the only thing they have to offer is sex and that a man will be a financial plan is another pitfall. Because all the creativity and time management that you're doing to kind of get to this baller, you could be doing that, like the same skills of time management, organization, getting your girls scouting out where they are. You could be doing that for yourself, or going through like a medical program, or going through, building a business, or going back to school. So I would say the two extremes of having to feel like men are these people that create our identity is a major pitfall that I think women should avoid in relationships. But also, there are women who are on my end who can be, at that time in my life, very suspicious to the point where when they see someone who's a decent person, they don't believe it, and then they sabotage it. So I would say if someone's nice to you and you want to get them something, don't be like, I'm not getting them nothing because whatever. So it's just kind of the same idea. It's just like kind of treat people like they're humans and check your emotions and whatever is triggering you to do these things.
And figure out that's the why. The why are you doing it? It's not even so much the what. It's not the fact that you're doing a grand gesture, but why are you doing it? Right. Are you doing it to get this person's attention because you don't have it?
Right.
Or are you doing it because it's a nice gesture?
Right. And on the other hand, why are you deciding not to do it?
Right.
As well. Like, is this because you have this belief that if you open up, then you'll be completely swallowed by the emotions and you won't feel like you'll be able to control yourself and things like that? So I would say, financially, a lot of things, but I also would say don't co-sign anything.
Oh my God, never.
No, ever, ever co-sign. And I would say too, don't be so quick to commingle finances. I say co-sign, but in general, even in my marriage, there's no one way to be in a relationship, but especially when you're dating, take your time, don't also be afraid to ask questions when it's time. I have I'm writing, I keep on talking about this book. I've written it, but I'm rewriting it. It's called Don't Let Them Touch Your Assets, a grown woman's guide to making sense of men, money, and love.
I love that.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that I made a lot of mistakes financially in dating. So there was one guy I really liked, but we hadn't really actually committed. We were just still in the talking stage, but I was at the height of me trying to understand myself financially. So I was bombarding him with all these questions that really were not.
What's your credit score?
Basically,
how much do you have in loans?
Right.
Do you know what I did when I was 19? And looking back at it, it's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I had a list of things that I thought should be in my next boyfriend. I didn't even have a real serious relationship at that point, but I was like, here's what I want. And I actually put, he needed to have a good credit score. At 19, I put that on something. And so I would ask questions like that on dates. I would be like, well, do you know what your credit score is?
But I don't think I don't think that's crazy. I just think it's a timing, first date. No. You know what I mean?
Because I was like, if your credit score is below 700, I don't know if we can work. No.
Right. Well, I think I
was a crazy child.
No, Tennesha, I think you were on the right track. It's just the delivery and the timing. And I think that's the whole point. If you're not ready to talk finances at the beginning of a relationship, great. Because you're trying to see if you even want to talk about finances. Because if it's just a casual dating thing, who cares about your money situation? We're just having fun and it's not going to last long. But when you start realizing that this is something that you really want and someone you can see yourself building a life with, then the idea of making conversations around money comfortable are important. But say, I don't think questions around money should be avoided. I just think that they need to be folded into the relationship at an appropriate time of the stage of the relationship.
So how and when should they be asked?
I can't say for each person because, like I said at the beginning, my husband and I started talking about marriage at 6 months, but I did get a book called The 100 Hard Questions after we started saying we're going to be serious. And there was this book called 100 Hard Questions with different sections about compatibility. So it was like sexual compatibility, like even to the point of like, how do you want your house, very tidy, super tidy, or you're just like, whatever life is, whatever, to finances. And so when we decided to like take this relationship to the next level, I bought that book.
I'm getting that book.
Get that book. It's a great book.
I really should have got that book a long time ago, but.
And I flipped to the finances section. And so, so I would say.
What sorts of questions are in the book around finances?
So are you a financial spender? Are you more of a saver? Do you believe, especially like in a Caribbean context, like do you take care of people back home?
Extended family.
Yep. And culturally, he's from the continent. So this idea of like,
He's from where?
Oh, that's at the continent, Ghana, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. So this idea, like, do you take care of your family back home, and how many are there? So questions like that, like to what extent do you believe in what percentage of your income is going to go towards people back home, right? Mm-hmm. So questions like that. Questions like, how much debt do you have? What is your credit score? Do you have a credit card? Do you want, for example, one of us to stay home if we decide to have children? Do you want to start a business? How much debt are you comfortable with? Like all those kinds of questions, which are very important because people think about...
They don't think about this part. They think about the love. You go into a marriage and you're like, I just love this person so much. Cool. Nobody ever married anybody they didn't love.
Right.
Well, actually, that's not true.
Right.
But hopefully you do already love the person. Right. But it takes more to keep it together.
Exactly. And since I didn't come from a loving perspective in general, I was all about business. So I sprinkled on top the love. So I come from I'm a very practical person. I have an econ background. It's kind of like, yo, what are the numbers? What we doing? Like, let me see a pie chart and stuff like that.
Right.
So those kinds of tools can be very helpful, especially if you're uncomfortable talking about that. And you could break it up, into, conversations that are like financial light, like how many, like in terms of living in America, it seems like everyone has student loans. So even a conversation about student loans is something that people can easily connect on without feeling very intimidated. Or talking about, where do you bank? So you can get an idea. Does he have a banking account, or is he using a checking account like on the corner with the bodega? Right? So you can get an idea of like why he likes his bank. You can ask him what are his financial goals, like what do you want to do, like what kind of like, where do you want to live, and like, how much does it cost? Like, your biggest financial mistake, like those kind of things, like help people feel comfortable talking about the money without going into the great details that a deeper, more committed relationship would require for you to decide, even further, what are your next steps going to be? Do you need to have more time for each person to clean up their financial homes in order to connect, things like that? Mm-hmm.
So do you think that before people get married, there should be a cleaning up? What do you mean by the cleaning up your financial home?
Yeah, I think that to the extent that one mate isn't comfortable with the other person's financial state, I would say yes. So depending on,
because once you marry, it's all together, right?
Well, once you marry, you have to make the decision: is it going to be all together? So,
I mean, in terms of your husband's debt is your debt. Is that how? I mean, because something happens to him, it's yours, right? Is that how it works?
Well, his credit card, I'm not sure the legality of it. I mean, in terms of matrimony, the idea of love, like what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. I don't think so. His credit card debt is my debt. I wouldn't think. But to avoid that question, clean it up before you get married.
Right.
So I guess it depends on it depends on the person's comfort level with whatever that person's bringing in. I know for myself, 6 years ago, I'm like, no. These are the things I can't do, and this is what I bring to the table, and here's why. Some people may have like, no.
What couldn't you do?
I couldn't do lots of debt. I couldn't do bad credit. He actually raised his score before we got married. So I'm serious.
That's love. Like, hey, I need you to have X credit. Okay, I will work on this before we get married.
Yeah, and he did.
Because that was important to you.
It was important to me. And I'm just, what I'm trying to say too is that you need to be honest with yourself about what's important. And don't pretend to be, oh, money isn't important, and I don't understand why someone would talk about that. Okay, then you don't be that person. But if you are that person, then be honest about it, because what you would end up finding is that if the person cares for you and they understand the role that money plays in quality of life, in opportunities for you and your family down the line, they would understand that they would want to bring that to the relationship. Right. Just like you want to bring no type of diseases or malfunctions emotionally, physically, whatever to your relationship, financially as well. You want to be in as top shape as you can be for that marriage so it can last, because it's not the wedding, it's the marriage. And marriage is a day-to-day thing. It's not reality TV. It's not Say Yes to the Dress. It's not 90-day wedding or whatever, fiance, whatever it is. It's none of those things. It's really like, how do we manage a household? There are expenses. There's a budget. There are things that you want to do. You have short-term goals, long-term goals, mid-term kind of size goals. And if you're not able to be transparent about that, then you're going to lack intimacy in your relationship. And there is a such thing as called financial intimacy that a lot of us don't talk about. And there's also a thing called financial abuse that we don't talk about as well. But those are two things that definitely happen in relationships.
What is financial intimacy and abuse?
Well, I would say financial intimacy is this connection, very deep connection about understanding the desires, the motivations, and like the logistics of your partner's goals, your finances, yours, and what you share together. And I think that having money talks, structured money talks every month or every week, not even about like what's going on in our budget, but how do you feel about money, talking about your childhood growing up about money. Because poverty, like living in poverty can be emotionally traumatic, let alone financially. And that's going to impact how you see things. Like
the world, not just money, but everything around you.
Right. And also someone that grew up with a lot of money may have other baggage, like maybe shame around being the one that could afford everything, or feeling the need that money is bad now because they saw their parents break up over it. Like they can have their own baggage. So I think just talking about money in general and your feelings around money creates an intimacy that is often overlooked, but can create such a connection between the two of you, because I got you in terms of, I understand why you need your $40 every month to go get your mani-pedi. I'm not going to berate you, because it's not the mani-pedi, it's the idea of like, I need to take care of myself in this particular way, or he needs to buy whatever it is that he wants to, and you're not going to nag him because that's his thing. But then all the money in terms of our savings goals, our debt elimination, our insurance, our retirement are taken care of, Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very sexy thing personally when you don't have any problems, because money creates such a problem when there is none, or when you're not on the same page, you don't understand what the person is communicating. And so that would say that was the intimacy, financial intimacy. On the other hand, financial abuse comes in all types of forms where you feel, I think my mom was in a financially abusive situation in a sense where her salary or her emotional labor and her financial ends when specifically invested into someone that didn't return it in terms emotionally or in terms of what the ultimate goal was. And you have financial abuse that way, but you have, deeper financial abuse where some women are forced not to work so the man can control the purse strings.
Yep.
And so they'll sabotage you getting jobs. They'll keep your keys so you can't go to a job interview. And some women may sometimes feel exploited. And this could be the other way around, where for the attention of a man, she'll buy him so many things, or he'll only come around payday. There are things I've heard, crazy things.
I'm gonna see you on Friday on the 1st and the 15th.
No, I actually was kind of dating. I had my hand in like air quotes. This guy was like, oh, so when, like, he was basically he was kind of like a Casanova. And I was like, I've been thinking in my head, like, you're not going to be lasting long, so you could do whatever you think you're doing, but I know. But he would get with older women who had money, asked him for money to buy him clothes, buy him drinks at the clubs, and he would end up exploiting them. And then they would get mad because they thought there was a relationship, but he was with lots of different women. And so he tried to do the same thing to me. I was like, I don't need you. Like, this not gonna work. So I'm just saying that there's different levels of that. So that's the pretty boy who wants you to buy him things. There's I call him the person that's very financially abusive in terms of trying to withhold you from growing economically. And then there's the guy too that may show you everything in terms of a very flashy high scale life, but he doesn't have any money to two penny store up together because everything's on credit.
This car is leased. This apartment is rented.
Right. Exactly. So there are lots of different versions of that. Or, there are lots of guys who think that they're too spiritual for money, but then want you to subsidize it. So they're like, no, that, I can't do that because of what they're
money
doing
is the root of all evil,
right.
and I don't need it. But you think you could get that real quick?
Exactly. Or Amazon is evil, but since you go into the store, can get me 2 books from Barnes and Noble. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So they kind of stop it.
So do you think that women should always, so like in the scenario you described where a man is making all the money and sort of sabotaging a woman's efforts to make her own, I always hear sort of old aunties say this, like you should always have your own account. Like whatever you do, you always have money on the side. Do you agree with that?
Yes. But I'm at the point where I still have my own account. And I think we don't have to keep it secret. I can say, I have a lot of money saved. I don't need this. Right. And I think that just puts them on check to say, you don't, I think the conversation on money in the sense of keeping it secret, I don't think you have to keep it secret. You could be very open about it because there's nothing wrong with making sure that everyone knows that this is a voluntary relationship.
I 100% agree with that. People should feel wanted and not needed, right? So like, I want to be in this relationship because I want to be. Right. I'm not going to be homeless if I'm not in this. Right. I'm not going to be starving if I'm not in this. I'm here only because I want to be.
Right. And I think the assumption is when you say you have to keep it secret is that you shouldn't have it. And I don't think that's true. Why wouldn't I want to have money on my own so I can maybe, do whatever, like pursue a passion? Like I started the Frugal Feminista with my own money. Right. And that account has everything to do with the things that go on with the business. Why would that be a secret? Or in this case, why would a woman who has money on the side, why wouldn't she want to for her other needs? And my grandma, old school Caribbean lady, she goes, you should always have enough money so you can get your own panties, right? She's like, no one should ever have to give you money to buy something that's so basic and personal.
Right.
And I've always kept that in the back of my head, like I would never be in a position where I have to beg somebody to get me even something, and I'm not being graphic, but something as necessary as a sanitary napkin. Right. No, there's a level of dignity and a level of pride that comes with having your own. Yep. And anyone that says that is their opinion. But for the legions of women who are in the Caribbean who may have to sell sex to get those needs met, or they have to have, or in, all the countries where women are exploited, not given access to education, where they have to use their bodies to make ends meet, they would differ from women that say, oh, that is going too far. That's not showing trust and love in a relationship. Well, then ask them, you know what I mean? Because they'll switch sides with you and switch place with you in a second.
Yeah, for me personally, how I look at it is I could never have my life be fully in somebody else's hands. Exactly. And when you don't have any money and you depend on it solely from somebody else, that's your life in somebody else's hands. Right. And like, what happens when that person's like, nah, I don't want this anymore. Right. Then you're done. You're out on the street. You're starving. You got nothing. Like, come on. You can't have that. Not in 2019.
No. And what happens if they die? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I've seen women who've had the belief that you invest in your family. And let's just say like everything was a beautiful relationship, but then he wasn't the best money manager. And that's the assumption that men are the superior money managers. I think everyone should contribute to the conversation around money and show the person who may not be as adept at it how to do it, because they may not always be there, right? So you may be the person that loves the numbers and things like that. So break it down for me in a way that I can understand and show me where the documents are. Maybe that's all I need right now. And then the next year, now that I got those two skills on, add on something else. So you don't have to bombard them, but you train them along the way. So in the event of a death or a divorce, that you're not left from the beginning with nothing, not left starting at the beginning.
And you should be asking questions like, do you have life insurance? Like, what are our health insurance policies? Like, you have to know. Like, I'm not saying everybody, you bring exactly 50-50 to the table, I bring the other 50. It doesn't have to be like that, but at least have the knowledge of what is going on.
Right. No, I had a coworker explain to me that her husband he didn't want her to go to work, and that was his way of showing love, and she liked not working as a way to return the love. But he was getting ill, and he was on his last days of cancer, died very early. And And it only dawned on her to ask him about the life insurance. And it was almost to the week that it was going to lapse that she was able to get him to renew it so she would have the money, because he died shortly after.
Wow.
And so I love stories like that. And in number one, that she wasn't left, destitute, but also it's a cautionary tale that you need to have those questions, even in loving relationships, especially in loving relationships, because that's another way to show love. Like love isn't only the spending of money, but it's also the protection of wealth. And a lot of us don't want to think about that, but it is. Because when they're dead, you don't want to have both the emotional turmoil and the financial turmoil and we don't want you on Facebook with a GoFundMe page to pay for the funeral.
Right.
Right.
How do you and your husband go about money in terms of splitting it up and share what you share versus what you keep separate?
Okay. So with us, it works for us. So we have a shared checking account, a shared savings account. He has his own retirement from his job. I have my own retirement from my job. And we have our independent savings that we brought into the marriage that we may not contribute to as much because we put more into the common savings and checking, but it works for us. So that's about 4 major accounts together. And then we have our respective ones. And I don't have to get better at this. I have to find out, I need his paperwork because I don't know where all of his things are, but I definitely update him in terms of beneficiaries and things like that on retirement. Also, now that we have a daughter, I add her to it. So we keep updated, but because I have to be better, just show me where the paperwork is, I have to get on top of that. But yeah.
Do you guys feel truly equal around money? Like, is it always with bills? You pay half of the electric, I pay the cable.
So what we do, we because we make around the same amount of money, but not exactly. So we put in a percentage base. We figure out, number one, what are all of our bills for our expenses? And then we create a percentage of how much we would contribute each. That would be fair to making sure that all of our bills are paid. So all the bills come from that shared checking account. So it's not you pay this, I pay that. Everything comes from that one pot, and we've contributed from our individual accounts to that common pot. And then our bills are paid that way. So I don't really have particular bills I pay. I just pay all the bills because he pays all the bills as well.
Right. And do you guys have like a monthly or weekly sit down financial status meeting, or how does a finance expert do that?
Right. That's so funny because like at the beginning of our relationship, where I feel I was a little bit more regimented and rigid around like, hey, you owe me $6. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Not on purpose, but it was a little bit much because I was just still learning how to be married and be with someone else. I was very on top of those little things, right? Now that I feel we have gotten into a groove, and we were even talking about just how businesses work. Sometimes they say like it takes about 5 years for a business to break even. And he says he thinks the same thing when it comes to marriage. Like sometimes people quit too early when like all the problems that you have to unearth from like all your previous relationships in your childhood.
Yep.
At least give it 5 years, because then you can begin to see
took a whole lifetime to build it.
Right. Give it 5 years in a marriage so you can begin to see like the benefits of all the hard work that you have. So that was what his analogy today. But in terms of how we handle money now, I'm still like the person that checks the account, manages the account, make sure there's money in it. And then I'll update him. And sometimes like I may not put money in time because that's so funny. But I'm on top of it. So we're very transparent around our transactions. And so we have with those checking accounts, we also have a shared debit card so we can see who's done what and what the money, where the money is coming from. And so the conversations are more like, okay, everything is set. We have this amount left, or let's put a little bit more in because the expenses are a little bit higher. So I feel like since the foundation of trust has been established and we have structures where we can see how much the mortgage is, and we have access to that account. Both of us have access to the account. We both have access to the checking account where we see where the money is coming from. Those kinds of questions like where is this and where is that is less of an issue. It's more like we're on a good path. Like what do we need to do next? And with respect to any big changes, like with a new job, there was like a bigger conversation around, how much money he was going to make and what is that going to mean for our expenses. we want to say change for, like, we have a daughter now. So what are some of the things we want to do for her? And that's when money conversations come in. So like major life changes come in. That's when we have another conversation.
Now, did you guys do a prenup?
No, I didn't have a prenup. And
did you have a conversation about it?
No, we didn't even have one about it. I guess, I don't know. It never even dawned on me. I knew it was a possibility, but I didn't want one, I guess. And I guess he never really wanted one either. But I think in our relationship, just how I understand how he deals with money, and it could be very different if we get divorced and he's bitter and I'm bitter. But I still think it would have been, from this perspective, a relationship well deserved, I guess I would say. And whatever he created, what we have half of, I feel like he'll be entitled to it, you know? So I hope that doesn't happen, but in the event that it does, I hope I wouldn't be bitter. And in the event that I am bitter, I hope I'll get over it. But I also feel too that I have the ability to create money anyway,
right,
you know, and rebuild whatever was lost. So it's just something temporary as well.
What is your advice for people right now that are in relationships, not necessarily married, but in relationships? What's your advice around money? Like, what should they be doing or thinking about right now?
Well, I think that you should work on yourself and figure out, number one, if you have emotional baggage, you're trying to work on that, and then see if any of your emotional baggage is financially related and work on that. And then ask the same of your partner to kind of get in touch with them, their financial identities, and see how compatible you guys are with respect to that. And if not, that doesn't mean it's a deal breaker per se, but it means it's going to be a lot of work, and seeing how you guys can manage living together. I'm not saying like living in the same house, but like living lives together and sharing lives around something like money, because it's really important. It's like one of the third characters or entities in your relationship besides the two of you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it may be worthwhile to go to therapy if that's something that you feel is such a problem that you can't solve it with amongst yourselves, but you still want to work together to create a life together. So I would say just work on your emotions and your money emotions, and understand that we all have them. And for you to think that, I'm good. Well, sure. But it would be great to begin to unpack that and have conversations about that, because a lot of us don't go into marriage thinking about money until it becomes a problem.
Right.
So I would say preempt those things with having those kind of conversations.
And what was that book called before?
Which one?
The first one you talked about, the questions.
100 Hard Questions.
100 Hard Questions. Okay.
Yes.
And you've also written a book.
Yes.
When your book is Heal Your Relationship with Money.
Yeah.
Understand your money. Why? Let go of past financial dysfunction and make peace with your money life in just 28 days.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Well, I created that book because basically you guys know my whole childhood story right now. I feel very close to all of you. No, but basically it's just like a lot of us have similar stories that we don't even understand and don't even know. And they're guiding our financial and emotional lives on a daily basis. And that's not good if it's not giving you the kind of life that you want. And so I created the book to help women really unpack in very tangible ways, because I was a classroom teacher. So I'm all about like giving small lessons and working and reflecting and doing, I call life work. So on like the first couple of weeks, so it's broken up into like 4 weeks. And the first week is around understanding your financial past and your financial money story, and realizing that that money story is just one of the chapters in your financial story, if you want it to be. And then helping you forgive yourself for any financial mistakes, helping you forgive those that might have created and contributed to this financial identity that no longer serves you. And the second 2 weeks are around, number one, what is your financial voice? The true one, not the one that was given to you, not maybe the 5-year-old self that is controlling you because you felt deprived as a 5-year-old, or the rebellious 21-year-old self that wanted to show the world that you are somebody, so you bought red bottoms, right? Right. If you're 40 and you're still living with that 20-year-old self and she's controlling the purse strings, you may want to start to think about who is your true financial self and that voice. And so that's what the second chapter is on, is like, who is she? What does she say? How do I know she cares about me financially now and for the future? And then the third week is around creating practices that support that voice. And then the fourth week is around creating long-term practices that make it easy for you to listen to that voice. So automating, creating a financial calendar, a financial schedule that allows you to be as open to your social life as your financial life. And I think that can actually going through each of those activities in a way that's very loving and compassionate to yourself, and being very open and curious about who your financial self is a great way to come out on the other side really loving yourself and be like, yo, I did that. Or I didn't know I had so much of that in me, but I'm glad that I was able to take the time to get to know who I really am with respect to money, and look forward to being a new woman when it comes to money. So I really love that book because I was crying when I wrote it, just because it was so many things I had to do myself in order to get to where I am right now. And I'm still a work in progress, but I know that just having done those activities myself and unpacked and leveled up in terms of my money mindset has allowed me to feel a level of abundance. And it has nothing to do with money. It's just like in terms of love, being open to receive. And that also comes in the form of money. Like sometimes I make money without realizing it. And it's only because I'm like, I give,
Right.
So I think it's a great resource, not just because I wrote it, but because I think it really helps women feel good about who they were, make peace with it, and then create financial peace for the rest of their financial lives.
I love it. Like money is such a reflection of who we are, not how much we have, but how we feel about it, how we deal with it, how we take it, how we let it go. Like it's us.
Yes.
It's just in the form of bills, but it says so much about your relationship with others and yourself, how you feel about money. We don't think about it in that way, but it's all connected. Yeah. It's just like, when you start going to the gym, how other things in your life start to change. Exactly. So it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to the gym now and I go early in the morning, so I have to sleep a little bit more. So I go to bed earlier at night. So now I'm getting more rest. Oh, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to eat a big pizza because, well, I feel bogged down and then I can't go to the gym. So like so much starts to change as a result of that one thing changing. And I feel like it's the same with money and sort of getting your financial life in order. Once you change that, a lot of things start to change, including your relationship with other people.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that I haven't been, I guess, as connected to people as I have been in the last couple of years. And it's no coincidence that I have, in terms of how money has been flowing, in terms of me being more generous and people being generous back, and not me wanting anything or feeling like it's like a measuring game.
Right. And
it's a great way to feel because you realize that the world is not out to get you. You know what I mean? You don't have to be suspicious. You don't have to be paranoid. And those feelings of goodness flow back to you emotionally, financially, and just even, in terms of your relationships with other people. So I completely agree, Tennesha. And I think that anyone that wants to start at a place where they can control it, start with their money. You can't control other people, but if you can start reflecting on, how am I treating money? How's money treating me? If, money were my best friend, what would they say about me? And begin to think about, well, how do I want that relationship to change? And how do you change that relationship? By putting time into it, by checking your accounts, but also checking your emotions when you go shopping, or checking, when you maybe, I know for myself, there's certain people, certain times of the year that trigger me to feel a certain kind of way about spending. And so I'm aware of that. So I may find an alternative to it. So I may not talk to that person because they make me feel inadequate or inferior because I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. And maybe next time I'll be able to say, girl, stop, or go away. But at least I know that I can't fight that fight right now. So I can find another way rather than, spend the way they want me to spend or do what they want me to do.
Right.
So it's a learning process. You get stronger and stronger the more you exercise that muscle. But either way, it's a great place to start to build self-awareness because you're the one that's spending it, no one else. So you can't say, someone came in and took this thing and went to Fashion Nova. That was you.
One thing I'm not a financial expert by any means, but a big piece of advice I would give to people is to be honest about where you are financially with other people. There's no shame in that.
Right.
If all your friends are going on a trip and you can't afford to go on the trip, just say, you know what? I got to work a little more right now. I can't afford to go on the trip at this point.
Absolutely.
But I think people feel the need to keep up too much. Right. People feel the need to, for lack of a better word, floss or stunt.
Right.
And there's just no need to do that.
Yep.
There's no reason you shouldn't be honest. Like, not everybody has money all the time.
Right.
And that's okay.
Exactly. And I think the financial shame piece is a big piece where I think it's great what's happening in our society now where we're just kind of saying, no, I'm tired of being ashamed of everything, and financial shame is a big piece. And a lot of times if you speak out against financial shame, you realize that the people who are probably trying to put that trip together they don't have any money either. You know what I mean?
Let's just all do this as a local vacation.
Exactly. Let's do a staycation, or let's just be let's use the same circle instead of to impress. Let's see how much we can save together.
Yeah.
Let's use our forces for good. Let's wear the same black pants for the next month and save the money so we can do something that we really want to do.
Yep.
You know?
Thank you for all this great advice. I think people
you.
needed to hear this in the new year.
Thank you, Tennesha. Thank you for having me.
Where can people reach you or reach out to you for help if they need some financial help? Where can they find your book, your website, all that?
Oh, great. So you can go to thefrugalfeminista.com, and the book is on Amazon, and there's a link on the site too on the right-hand side for a link to the book. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as Frugal Feminista on Twitter and Instagram, and The Frugal Feminista on Facebook. But you can always hit me up with an email. I love emails. I love hearing if this helped you, if you have questions. Especially I have coaching this year. I decided to do 2019. I decided to do some more coaching. So you can go Kara, Kara, at thefrugalfeminista.com, and I'll respond.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so great.
Yes. And I'll put a link to your book on the site as well.
Awesome.
And please reach out to me and let me know what you guys think of today's show. You can reach me at Tennesha Wood on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.